All right, what is going on, everybody? Welcome back to another Serious Angler podcast. As always, I'm your host, Bailey Egbrett, and joined with me is the captain, Mr. Andy Full. What's going on, dude?
Oh, just a long day. Now everybody's listening to this on a Friday. I've been up since 4:30 this morning, and last night I got maybe 2 hours of sleep, so it's been a long day. My cat decided that he wanted to play with everything, and he woke up my daughter like 3 times, and Amanda was passed out and didn't hear things, so I took the beck and call and tended to everything. Yeah, it's been a day.
Life lesson: don't buy a damn cat.
Yeah, he's what, 5 now, I think. So we've had him for 5 years. He's awesome. Just whenever there's like a moon change or whatever, he just goes wild.
What?
Yeah, like
A moon
moon
change
cycles.
with
Yeah, like
cats?
if there's a full moon or a new moon, he's just insane. So it's
I've
like two
never put
times a
that
month.
correlation together with cats.
Yeah, dude. They're
Is that actually a thing? Like
Oh yeah,
full
like
moons?
all animals, even human beings. Walk through a grocery store on a full moon and see how many grumpy people there are, or crazy people. There's a direct correlation.
I'm gonna have to get like a lunar calendar and just see if my fiance gets grumpier on a full moon.
She probably does.
But dude, that's actually kind of funny because that kind of fits our episode tonight. We're getting on Casey Reed, who is a kayak angler, but also does a lot of night fishing, which is something I've dabbled with a decent amount in the past. I haven't been able to do it in probably a year and a half, but I think Casey can agree with me when it's a full moon that it's the bite is pretty gnarly, especially at night. So we'll get into talking about that, but never really put that together with cats. I
Full
put it together
moon,
with deer, but that's
people
about
don't
it.
sleep. Fish feed late at night. They don't feed during the day as well. Cats play all night, sleep all day.
See, that's why you buy a dog. Dogs sleep all
Same
night.
thing, dude. Full moon. Watch your dog on a full moon. I bet he's a little different.
No, dude, my dog is an idiot. He sleeps all day, all night, does not care.
See, that's funny. Like my cat is the same way. He's the laziest SOB ever. And then there's a full moon. He's like, like my daughter has like a little grocery cart. She like pushes around the house, and that dumb cat was swatting at it and pushing it across the floor last night. Like this grocery cart that's 4 times the size of him. He's trying to swat it and moving it around the house.
Dude, my mom got a cat like I don't know, 6 months ago
I
maybe.
remember.
Yeah, and my it's funny. My dad and I were talking about this on the phone the other day, and he goes, "Do not give your wife any glimpse that there's a possibility of getting a cat, because the next day she will come home with one." And so, but that little thing, dude, is a little demon. And my German at home, my German Shepherd, he's like 13 years old, and he's still full of it. Like he's still got a crazy ton of
Yeah.
energy, but like he's getting to that stage where like he's 13 years old, so he's old.
He's
Oh,
grumpy.
he does not care, like for like at all. Like he just gets grumpy and he'll snip sometimes, not at us, but like that cat
At
picked
the
the
cat.
wrong time of day, and she like was playing with his because he's got floofy ears, so she started
Yeah.
playing with his ears. One turn of his head, and that cat went from one side of the room to the next.
It's
It was
so
good.
funny.
Yeah,
Cats
cats aren't smart, but really good episode today. We're excited. We're going to bring Casey on here in a second, but we got a couple things coming up. Look out for another Hobie eyewear giveaway coming up at the beginning of
Ooh.
December, and we got some pretty cool media stuff to kind of go along with it. That I think we're pretty excited, both on our front and Hobie eyewear's front, to show you guys and put out there. But Christmas is coming up. Obviously, I was sitting there today, and next week is Thanksgiving. I completely forgot that next week was Thanksgiving. I thought it was like 3 weeks away.
Nope,
But
it's next week, bud.
what?
Next week, bud. Bills play the Saints.
Didn't I say next week?
Yeah, you said 3 weeks. Don't mind me.
Yeah, I was like, wait,
Like,
what?
it's a day. It's
But
a
no,
day.
it hit me today that like Christmas is like a month away,
Month.
so
Yeah.
I haven't started any Christmas shopping whatsoever.
Same.
Yeah. So
Screw
yeah, that hit me, and I
everybody.
was like,
I'm
oh
going
crap, like
Scrooge.
yep, got to start budgeting for that and start actually doing something because with inventory for a lot of people now, you might not get it until like Easter.
That's fine. Give it to him at Easter.
They'll get it when they get it.
It's a holy gift.
Yeah. something like that. Dude, I think we need to shut up and get our guest down here and start talking some fishing.
Sure.
But I think without further ado, we'll bring him on, Mr. Casey Reed. What's going on, dude?
Good evening, man.
Hey, how's it going, guys?
Good. How are you?
It's going good, dude. It's
Hey,
it's good. What's that?
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on, man. I'm looking forward to this and talking some night fishing, man. It's really what I love to do, man. So
Yeah, we've been seeing we follow along with social media and stuff that you've been putting on, and obviously you and I have been talking for a while, not just night fishing, but we talk electronics, especially on the kayak. And I think in terms of what we got rigged up, we're pretty similar right now. So we'll touch upon that a little bit in the episode today. But dude, I've been severely jealous of watching all the big striper that you've been posting while you've been catching that night. That is something I've never done, and I think I've now put it on the list of to do. That's pretty gnarly, dude.
it's so much fun. Like I look forward to. Well, there's really 2 times a year I look forward to. I'm a big tournament angler, but the 2 times a year I look forward to really don't have much to do with tournaments. It's all night fishing and catching striper. This time of year forward till about December, till it gets too cold down here to really want to go out at night anymore. But then the spring as well. I guess late spring, early summer is some unbelievable fishing for bass.
Yeah, you guys. I mean, down there, your local lakes are what? Smith Mountain, probably Anna. Is there anything else that's really predominant that people might know about?
I mean, really, the one closest to me is just Smith Mountain. Like to the closest part of it, I'm 30 minutes away, so that's like that's an easy trip. And there's a few other smaller lakes that I fish a lot, which we won't mention on here. But but yeah, there's definitely some good fishing around. I don't hit the river a whole lot, but we got the James River right through Lynchburg. I work in Lynchburg, so it's right there. But I mean, really, I'm more of a lake guy. Stick to the lakes rather than that moving water. But it's got some really good fishing as well.
Heck yeah, man. So I guess before we get too deep into this in the show, for folks that may not know who you are or what you do, kind of give a little bit of background about yourself. Maybe what you do for work, what you do from a kayak tournament standpoint, and maybe kind of let us in on how you got into bass fishing in the first place and who kind of got you started doing that.
So, I mean, I kind of grew up fishing little creeks, behind the house, fishing neighborhood ponds. And, I did that for a while, catching catfish, catching whatever, like we all do when we're young, just having fun out there catching whatever. But, I kind of got away from fishing for a while throughout like high school and stuff. And then I guess I was around 20 something years old, and went out to the pier at the beach one time, and they had some fishing rods to rent. And we went out there and just started catching some sharks, and again, just kind of catching whatever. And that really got me back into fishing. And after that, I came back from the trip to the beach and just started fishing the river, fishing ponds, fishing everything I could, from the bank. And then I just finally got a kayak and got off the bank. And then from there, it's been history, upgrading kayaks every year. And then finally I got a full-fledged fishing kayak, thousands of dollars of electronics. And, it's an addiction now, but yeah, so I work at a ski and snowboard facility here in Lynchburg, and it's an artificial surface, so it's not real snow. It's called Snowflex, and the university here that's in Lynchburg owns it, and I've been working there for 11 years now, and just running the rental shop and doing a little bit of everything around there. But I used to be a big snowboarder, and kind of injured myself a few times, and then that's kind of about the same time I got into fishing, and now I fish like I used to snowboard. So
yeah, so kind of like almost a perfect timing, for you to kind of move over into kind of almost a different niche. But Andy, I think Deacon might appreciate this question. For those who may not keep up with it, our other co-host Adam Deacon, who runs Business from the Bass Boat, which is a really cool segment of the Serious Angler podcast, is very business oriented. So Deacon will appreciate the question. How similar is the snowboarding skiing niche to fishing? Like competitive snowboarding skiing compared to competitive fishing?
It's a great question.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've never actually been asked that before, but I mean, there's definitely similarities as to like decision making, because in the snowboard world, like when you're competing against other people, you're seeing the runs that they're doing, and then you're seeing what they're getting scored on them, and then you're kind of basing your next run off of what they're doing. A lot of times, it's real. There's a lot of decision on which tricks you want to do, and the line that you kind of want to do in that competition. And I mean, for me, tournament fishing is 75% decisions that you're making those right decisions. I mean, I think that's pretty comparable in it. Obviously, I think snowboarding is a lot more of a physical activity. I mean, bass fishing is definitely, in my opinion, it's a physical activity. I get tired after being out there in the water all day, but you're using a lot more of your muscles while you're out there snowboarding and stuff. You get a lot more sore when you make mistakes and fall.
Oh, for sure.
Agree with that. Well, dude, I'm kind of curious because I think it's, you hear so many stories about people in their first boat and why guys got into boats and all that jazz in terms of bass fishing. But I think it's a more interesting question nowadays as to how'd you get into your first kayak and why you chose to stay in the kayak route? Because it's a completely, I mean, it's been around for, I don't know, 8 to 10 years, I think, from a legitimate kind of competitive standpoint. But even still, like right now, it's an untapped market. So I'm very curious, when you got into it, why you got into it, and then what kept you in it, like till today.
So, I mean, I guess it was like 8 or 9 years ago. I had a girlfriend at the time, and we would always borrow a friend's canoe and just we'd go over there to his house, pick it up, and go out to the river and do a float. And I mean, we loved fishing, and it just made sense to get out on the water. And she ended up buying us, I mean, it was like $150 Pelican kayak or something, sit-in kayak, just the cheapest thing you can get basically. And we got out on those all the time. And like I said, from there, I had that for about a year, and I was like, man, I'm spending so much time in this thing, I need to upgrade. And I upgraded to another kind of crappy kayak, as far as the standards of fishing
Baby
kayaks
steps.
now anyways. And yeah. And after I got that was a sit on top kayak, but it didn't have like the raised frame seat or anything. You're still just sitting on the plastic. And again, I was just getting heavier and heavier into fishing, and I was spending 12 14-hour days in that thing, and I'd get out and my back was killing me, and I'm like, all right, it's time to upgrade again. At that point I started seeing, making more friends in the kayak fishing world, and I saw the kayaks that they had, and I'm like, man, there's a lot nicer kayaks out here. And so I went and upgraded to my first Old Town and the Predator 13, and man, that's an awesome fishing kayak still to this day. Mm-hmm. And just being able to get out on the water, it's awesome. And as far as like, I've had some friends with boats and stuff, and I've gone out with them, fish tournaments and stuff. But for whatever reason, man, I really just love the kayak. I mean, I fish the same waters. It's not like I really use it to get into little creeks that a lot of people don't fish. I usually fish out of a boat ramp on whatever lake is around. So, I mean, there's always boats around, but for whatever reason, I just like, I feel like you're a little more connected in my opinion. And I don't know if that's the real reason why, but definitely feel that way about it.
Definitely way more in control too, unless the wind's blowing like 90 miles an hour.
Yeah.
Well, the nice part, I think, Andy, is Casey's got probably, I think, the most decked out kayak, I think, in the nation now, especially being that he runs an autopilot, which has no Ultrex in it. So I guess, Casey, give us a little lowdown now, because I know you've recently upgraded, and I'm severely jealous of the upgrade. But I mean, am I wrong in saying that you might have the most decked out kayak in terms of electronics in the nation right now?
Yeah, it's there may be somebody else that's pretty close, but it's up there for sure. I mean, you're talking a Helix 10, a Helix 9, Mega 360, and now Mega Live, and all networked together, so they're all seeing each thing, and it's definitely a lot going on for sure, man. But just I mean, ever since I first learned the side imaging, I'm like, man, this is awesome. And then the 360 came out, and I was like, I couldn't wait. It took me a while to even get it. I saved up for a while and was like, man, I want to get it, but I don't know. Rigging it on a kayak, and then I started seeing that others have done it, and I'm like, all right, I'm definitely doing it. And dude, the 360 is absolutely amazing. Like, I mean, I thought side imaging was like the ticket once I learned that, but the 360 is just, it helps so much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, especially from an efficiency standpoint, and making, wasting less time making random casts. You're making, if you're an offshore, structure fisherman like myself, it's a huge tool to be able to save time and make, not necessarily the importance of making less casts, but making more high percentage casts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. And like, so I found myself like, I mean, after the 360 came out, the original one's been out for quite some time, but so I knew about kind of what it was and just hadn't ever used it. But like, I found myself kind of using my side imaging as a 360, so I know there's like a stump or a brush pile out there, and because I went by it, and then I turned the kayak and like kind of get an idea. As I'm turning, you see it again on the side imaging, and you see exactly where it's at, and you can kind of hit it with the cast as you're turning and seeing it kind of in real time. And so, I mean, functionally, I was using my side imaging as a 360, and it took so much more time to figure out exactly where everything was that you're trying to cast to. And now the 360 just rotates itself. You can be spot locked, and right in front of it. Doesn't matter where you're at around it. You can just spot lock anywhere as soon as you see it, and you can just hit it with a cast. I mean, pretty much every time.
Right.
And yeah, it saves, keeps your lure in those high percentage areas a lot more.
Yeah, that's the
Awesome.
poor man's 360. I think I've seen Andrew and I have done it on his boat where he doesn't have 360, where you have your side imaging on the front graphs, but it's linked obviously to the back by the motor. So you're sitting there like, oh, you're looking at it like, oh, there's a rock off to here. So you're looking back 45 degrees to kind of pair up where everything's at.
Yeah.
Do the same thing along those lines. Yeah, good old poor man's 360.
Yeah, and I mean, it worked well for a long time, but then finally, like, yeah, I mean, the 360 just makes it so much easier, man.
Yeah. So I went one step further with it too. I'd have side imaging, down imaging, 2D on the front end mapping, so I knew where everything was. But on a 12-inch screen, it gets little and convoluted.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why I ended up going with two graphs. I wanted to, with the 360 especially, but I wanted the ability to run everything and on either screen as well, just to make sure I could have everything that I wanted on the screen at any time.
Yeah, and I kind of want to pick your brain about this too, because I think there's very few people, at least to my knowledge, that run 360 on a kayak, first of all, but then also run a 360 and a forward facing. And when I was thinking about it, because I plan on fully having Mega Live. Mega Live should be coming before next season begins.
Hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully. But the plan with that is in terms of usage, because I have the same setup in terms of I have a Helix 9 at my hip, I have a Helix 10 up front. And right now, being with 360, it's nice because I can have side imaging, my down imaging and 2D mapping, all that jazz on the 9, but have 360 be fully encompassing on the front for 360 on the Helix 10. But in terms of using both, part of me thinks there might be rare occasions when I'll have both. Maybe like a Lakeview Fall in Alabama is a great example where the Hobie TOC is at, where especially if you're in a brush pile deal where you can have your mapping in a 360 next to you on the 9 and have your forward facing on the front with on the 10. But I don't think there's a lot of cases where I'll probably run both on the kayak. But I'm curious your take on how you're going to use that with the two only having two screens and utilizing 360 and live.
So I've had the live for very little time now and kind of just trying to get it dialed in and get used to it. Cause for me, it's a whole new concept. Like I've seen the different lives, but never really got any time with them. So, for me right now, it's kind of a bad time because I'm fishing for striper, like not doing normal stuff that I would do, like bass fishing, basically. Right. So I don't know, but my plan is like right now, ideally, is I'd just have and again, this may change, but I'd have the 360 running on one screen, have the Mega Live running on one screen, and I could, if I need the maps, I can split the 360 screen with maps, because that does help quite a bit sometimes. But yeah, I think really for the most part, just having the 360 on one, the Mega Live on the other, and then if I'm running somewhere doing something else, I usually pull those out of the water and then just run side imaging, maps, down, and sonar.
Right. Yeah. That being said, I think a good question that I'm curious about, because I've seen you be successful in tournaments doing a few different things, but are you more of to yourself, like if you were asked this question and you kind of reflect back on you as an angler, are you more of an offshore or deep water kind of guy, or do you like to be on the bank in shallow water and like power fishing?
Yeah, offshore for sure. Yeah.
My man. So you like to kind of utilize your electronics to full capacity and trick those fish that aren't seeing as many baits. At least for us, still up in the north, offshore is kind of like a new thing for many, it seems.
Yeah, I still feel like there's so much, and there's a lot more people fishing offshore doing this electronic stuff, and they all have the top of the line stuff as well. But I still feel like there's so much that goes missed. And the lakes, these lakes we fish for tournaments, a lot of them are huge, and not everybody's that's fishing offshore is finding all this stuff that's out there. And so like you come across a couple of different things that maybe nobody's found, who knows, but very few people, and you can find fish on that stuff, and when you do that and you think you found something nobody else has found, like that's really when you start to do good in tournaments. Finding that stuff that just people aren't fishing a lot or ever really.
Yeah, and I think on that there's something to be said for folks that can afford these technologies and will buy them thinking that they're automatically just going to start using them efficiently and it's going to work for them and they're going to see all these amazing things, and then they realize that there's an additional added effort to actually using these things in the correct manner, and they just don't end up using them, and they go back to the bank or they go back to docks, where just because you own it doesn't mean you know how to use it right.
I know
And
a lot
then-
of people like that.
Yeah, and then I think there's something else to be said to a kayak sense that, that you like you said, there's very few kayak anglers that might be out doing some of that, that offshore game of, trying to find stuff that maybe no one else has found. But I think there's even fewer that are out there willing to put the work and the man hours in of actually graphing for this stuff and having the patience to be able to stare at a screen and a kayak that's going 2-3 miles an hour the whole time to find stuff like that. I think there's a very small percentage, especially kayak anglers, that are doing that.
Yeah, I mean it took me a long time to get dialed in, like with side imaging, even like with what I've learned with it. I mean, I'll tell you, my first, I'm starting to get some reverb here.
Yeah, that was Andy. Sorry.
I apologize.
Okay. Yeah, I got a Helix 5. I don't know when, quite a few years ago, and it had side imaging on it, and I didn't know what I was looking at when I turned the side imaging on. I didn't know how to dial it in, get it looking good, and I didn't know if I didn't know what I was looking at. And finally, I started watching videos and kind of figured out what I was looking at. What the screen was showing me when I'd go over top of something, and how it was supposed to look and how it looked on the graph. And it kind of clicked for me all of a sudden. And I started using it, and I was like, man, I got a 5-inch screen here trying to run the side imaging. This is just like, this isn't good. And I mean, as soon as I kind of started learning that side imaging, I went out and bought a Helix 10, and it was just, it just went from there. Like all the stuff that you can see with it, it just blew my mind, and started catching fish using it, fishing offshore. And just really never looked back since then. I'm like, man, I love this technology stuff. Like I want to keep at it, and still here now trying to figure out this Mega Live now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm super pumped to get more of your feedback as you use it on the kayak. And I think that with your kayak that you have that autopilot, it's going to play a more of an advantage in your case, being that I think. So let's compare this quick, and this is no knock at any brand. So I have a Hobie 12 360. You have an autopilot with an Ultrex that has spot lock. I think personally you're going to have a better advantage of using that Mega Live because you won't have to worry about your boat floating off of any position or which way your heading is. So you're going to be able to really keep up with that fish better. So I think you probably have a swivel mount, correct?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So you're going to be able to keep up with those fish, I feel like, a little bit better and not worrying much less on, is your kayak going to stay in one place, where I'm going to have to worry about my foot pedals a little bit and also still looking at the screen and keeping up with that fish on Mega Live and worrying about making sure I'm not missing a hook set.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely like it's a lot going on, and yeah, having that spot lock is definitely going to help. I mean, it helps with the 360 now, and just with the Mega Live, not having to worry about positioning as much, and just being able, if I need to turn it, I can turn it and then get my hand back on the reel as quick as possible with nothing else going on. So yeah, I think the spot lock's definitely going to be key fishing offshore stuff with the Live.
And it probably helps in those long days too when you want to get some graphing done, but you're whooped.
I couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, sorry. I said it probably helps on those days when you're whooped at the end of like a practice day, but you want to graph something, and you just click the button and you're good.
Yeah. I mean, I've loved this kayak. Like I was kind of hesitant when they first came out with it, and after some time in it, that motor's amazing. Like it's not the fastest motor out there, but it has the abilities that a lot of, or pretty much, unless you get another like bow mount hump or Minn Kota, you don't have these capabilities. So
Right.
it's definitely helped me a lot over the past 2 years.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And I mean, boat positioning as well kayak positioning, when you're fishing the offshore spot, the spot lock, you're able to maintain your spot even better. So it's awesome. That I'm just fascinated by the kayak game and how far it's come. So it's neat.
Yeah, it's been awesome kind of being a part of this growth and seeing where it's going. I mean, 5 years ago, fishing like the KBF National Championship, there was like a handful of people that had motors on their kayak. And now, I mean, you're talking, I'd guess over 50% probably have motors, but, probably 95% probably have motors and a pedal drive or motors or a pedal drive. So, I mean, it's been amazing just kind of watching the more and more people get motors over the years. And now it's like, that's the majority. If you don't have a motor, like you're kind of on the outside looking in.
Yeah, I think unless you're fishing like small river stuff, I mean, I think the paddle kayaks is a dying breed. I think the only guy, and correct me if I'm wrong, I could be completely wrong here, but the only one that I know that's still consistently very successful in the kayak game that still uses a paddle kayak is Drew Gregory.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely one, but he's got motors on his now too. He does paddle a lot still, but I mean, he's definitely moving to motors in those, in the tournaments that allow it. But there's a few people that are like Russ Snyder's, for example. I'm pretty sure he's out there paddling in these Hobie tournaments when he fishes them. They don't allow the motors, so he's out there paddling and still whooping people.
Yeah, very true. Well, dude, I kind of want to switch gears here and start talking about a little night fishing, because this is something that I really wasn't into very heavy until a buddy of mine talked me into going out with him, because just from a schedule standpoint, and like majority of folk have nights that they can go fish. It's more of, are you okay going to work the next day knowing that you're only going to have 3 hours of sleep, maybe?
Right.
So once I actually sucked it up and decided to go try night fishing, I think I was out almost every night for like the next 2.5 weeks, weather permitting, because it's some of the most fun I think I've had fishing. And I'll start it with saying that like we kind of talked about a little bit offline, is one of my first experiences was like you realize that there's like a time window when things really get good and when things start to shut off a little bit. And one of my first experiences is you start hearing that bait pop around you, because all these bass underwater, you can see things start to come to life, especially on your graph. And it seems like they push the bait shallower and shallower, and it almost sounds like it's starting to rain. Like I really thought it was about starting to rain, but it's actually all the bait that's popping around you. And once you start hearing like cannonballs falling from the sky, that's when you know like your next cast you're about to get slammed. And the cool part is like you can't see it. You can't see anything. You can just hear your bait or feel your bait, and your rod's going to get taken out of your hand. But I think really to dive more into this conversation, and I want to throw it at you, Casey, is what got you started in night fishing, and what kind of what kind of fuels your drive to go out at night and fish?
So it really started there. So my neighbor, he had a John boat, and he'd go out and do some striper fishing at night. And I loaded up my rods in his boat, and we went out. I'd never really done it before. I had no idea what I was doing. Couldn't see anything. Like it was kind of brutal at first, but we started catching some striper. It was, again, that was this time of year, and we started catching some stripers and doing pretty good. And then I kind of started going out on my own in the kayak and trying to figure it out myself. and just started catching some big stripers, and that I had never caught stripers before. I didn't really know there was friggin' big stripers in Smith Mountain Lake, and then starting catching 35-inch stripers, like the pull that they put on your rod, man, is an amazing feeling. But again, I'm kind of a bass fisherman at heart, but we kind of going into the spring, and this is exactly what you described there. It happens to us in the spring here. So at Smith Mountain Lake and other lakes across the country as well, but I've only really experienced it like this at Smith Mountain Lake. But they have a shad spawn, and the shad at a certain time during the night, the shad come up on the banks, and usually here it's on riprap banks, and they start spawning. And shortly after you start hearing those shad, you'll just hear exactly what you described. It's like bombs blowing up all over the lake, and it's so quiet out there at night. You can hear them on the other side of the creek you're in, or wherever. You'll hear them just all around you, and you're like, oh, holy crap! And yeah, you can't see a whole lot, but we go out there, throw a little wake bait up against the rocks, and you'll catch largemouth, you'll catch smallmouth, you'll catch flatheads, you'll catch striper, you'll catch anything that's in that lake at that time, and they're just feeding like crazy. And it's the most unbelievable fishing I've ever done, and I look forward to doing that every single year. As much as I love like tournament bass fishing during the day, and I love it, but I'd give it all up if I could just do this all year long, fish at night during the shad spawn, because it's just, there's nothing else like it.
Literally everything comes to life like at night. And so really the only time period that I've really night fished was like during the dog days of summer, when you can't really catch crap during the day, like when things get really tough. And when I knew the power of night fishing was, I went out on one of these lakes that was like maybe getting 17, 18 pounds on a good day to win a tournament out of. And I went out there at night when it was like a really tough time of year. It was like mid-August, which is kind of, in New York, it's pretty tough. And went out that night, and I think I had 24 pounds in like 2.5 hours throwing top waters. And that was smallmouth and largemouth. And it's not a time of year you catch smallmouth in that lake. And I just was mesmerized. Like it's crazy what comes to life. And like, it's funny you say flatheads. I have never caught bullhead catfish like on any artificial whatsoever. I was catching them on topwater, like more than one. And I thought that was just kind of crazy. Like I was catching smallmouth, largemouth, bullhead. I was catching perch. I was catching pike, tiger muskie. Like everything comes together and then just has their own Thanksgiving every night.
It's wild.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, it sounds like. Do you know? Is that the shad spawn, or because to me that sounds exactly like the shad spawn what you described, but I don't know if it's a different time of year up there or what.
Yeah, we don't really have a shad spawn,
quote unquote. Shad
spawn. We don't really have like your southern shad spawn. I think it's really just these fish. We kind of get a lot of. We have like a lot of chasers in terms of like when the things get into the summer, they stop relating to certain stuff. I don't really know the reasoning behind it, but they start chasing schools of alewives. And I think at night it's a lot easier for these, these bass, pike, whatever, to push these schools up into the shallow grass and feed a lot heavier. But I mean, that's my only really theory.
Well,
Sorry.
So it's from my understanding, it's actually alewives that when I say the shad spawn, it's the alewives, and to me, I think you're describing the shad spawn. So like, I really think that's what's going on when you're talking about it, because that's exactly what. I mean, it doesn't happen all year for us, It's just for about 2 months, like maybe 2.5 months, but it's like unbelievable.
Yeah, and actually, you know what? That might very well be what it is, because I've only ever really fished at night from like mid-June to mid-August, and I've never really tried it any other time frame. That very well could be it.
I can almost guarantee you that's what it is. Like, I mean, I'm not an expert on the shad spawn. I'm an expert on the shad spawn here at Smith Mountain Lake, but it's different at every other lake I've been to. But grass lake, Smith Mountain Lake's not a grass lake. But everything that I've seen, it's generally around grass on lakes that have grass. So, I mean, yeah, that would make perfect sense to me, which is pretty cool. Like, I try learning as much about the shad spawn at other lakes, just because from what I've seen, it's so much different everywhere you go. But it's pretty cool.
Right.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to go test this theory out. Not now. Now that we're getting to some really cold temps, but like,
Yeah. Good luck.
I think, like maybe early October, but also into the spring. I'll have to test this time frame and report back with results on if it's anything similar to what I experienced in the summer months, at least.
Yeah, I'd definitely be interested on that.
Yeah. So I guess to kind of dig into this more, when you know that there's not really a shad spawn going on, because I feel like when that's going on, you can kind of get away with doing a lot of things in terms of just kind of relating to the bank or structure to catch these fish. And I'm assuming, like you said, a wake bait, so throwing like a top water or a wake bait. But like when things for you, I guess, in times where night fishing is tougher, or maybe you have to implement more strategy to it. What kind of strategy do you have in mind when you set out to go fishing at night?
So it kind of just depends on the time of year. So during the summer, I have a lake that I fish like pretty consistently, and I get asked this a lot. A lot of people see me fishing at night all the time, and they're like, "Hey man, what do you do to catch fish at night?" My first thing of advice for anybody is, in general, is as long as there's not a shad spawn. If it's a shad spawn or something else, like that's completely different. But like just in general, do the same thing you're doing during the day. I for the most part, I throw the same things. Most of the time, the same colors. Like I'm big on green pumpkin around here, and throw green pumpkin at night, shaky head, throw a drop shot. I'm fishing the same places for the most part, and doing the same lures that I'm gonna fish during the day. There are a few different things that I'll do sometimes, and a lot of it comes down to a timing deal, because the fish will, just like they'll do during the day sometimes, but at night, again, they'll pull up and feed at a certain time or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can time that right, you can. Or I don't power fish a ton. I'm more of a finesse fisher, but then I'll start throwing a little more power baits when I know or think that they're coming up to kind of feed and push bait up shallow and whatnot.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, literally, my biggest advice is just start by doing the exact same thing you're doing during the day, and that just blows people's mind a lot of times. But really, that's when I have my most success, I think.
Yeah, I never really tried. So like a drop shot and stuff like that. Not like, and people talk about throwing a big worm. People talk about throwing like a jig and stuff at night, and like it's always crazy to think about that. Like that's like stuff that they can feel, but it's nuts to me how that they can lock in on that and actually be able to like be able to eat it, if that makes any sense. Whereas like for me, when I've gone out night fishing, it's always been with a whopper plopper or a chapo, and then like a blacked out, and it's all like just straight jet black. Because, and we'll get into colors in a second.
Yeah.
But like I always saw that the most disturbance you can make, the most noise you can make, the easier it is for that fish to lock in. But like you said, like throwing a drop shot or a jig, I tried it before, and it seems like there's no difference in them being able to like not be able to, I guess, see it, but more feel it with their lateral line, as I think what they're doing. But talk about maybe your color schemes and stuff like that. Do you change it up at all from the day and night so that maybe it's more efficient when things get dark?
95% of the time, no, I don't. I'm throwing the same thing that I throw during the day.
That's crazy to me.
And what about that 5% of the time that you do?
Just like Bailey was saying, I'll either switch to a darker color, a black, something darker, or a little bit bigger of a worm, or I mean, I throw an old monster quite a bit, like on a Texas rig, even during the day. But sometimes I'll throw that a little bit more during night. But yeah, I mean, just a darker profile and something a little bit bigger that moves the water a little bit more when you're moving it.
Got it. Now, is there any like certain baits you'll throw during like moon phases or cycles of what's going on? Like, how important is the moon with night fishing, and then with bait selection?
Man, I've been trying to figure out the moon. So depending on what time of year, when I'm out fishing the shad spawn, I am looking for a full moon. Well, I guess most of the time, I think the full moon's probably the best bet.
Mm-hmm.
This time of year, when I'm night fishing, even though I did pretty good last night on a full moon. Well, I don't know if it's quite full, but it was. You look up in the sky, it looks pretty like big moon. I don't know if it's technically the full moon or not, but I did pretty good that night. But generally, I'm out fishing dock lights and people's bait lights that they have out, to attract bait and attract fish. And I think the full moon generally hurts that type of fishing at night, just because it illuminates the whole lake, and those fish just the bait stays a little bit more spread out, and the fish I think stay a little bit more spread out as well. But yeah, I mean, for the most part, during the shad spawn, full moon, 100%. If anything, just because you can see better. But I definitely think I've had some of my best days on the full moon fishing wake bait topwater.
Do you find?
But again, I know some.
Go ahead.
So I was going to say, I know some guys down in Florida that they say the exact opposite when they're throwing a frog. They don't want any moon, and I'm like,
which means they're fishing a new moon.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny.
I don't know, man. Like,
I apologize. Go ahead. I'll let you finish first.
It's all right. So the moon phase has just been kind of hit or miss for me. Like I've really tried to figure it out, and I can't come to an exact science about it for sure. But except during certain times of year. So I've had big bags when there's the new moon. I've had big bags when there's the full moon, and all in between. And it really just seems hit or miss to me. And there's so many other variables when you go along with just the moon phase, as well as the weather and all that. So for me, it's almost too much to keep up with. I just go fishing and see what happens.
Hope for the best. I like that, because the more you kind of just go fishing, the more loose you are, and you're not worried about the little things such as the moon phase. And it could help us, right? Like I know musky guys that will only fish on new moons, and they refuse to fish on full moons because they're like they feed better when it's a new moon. So I was just trying to like tie in the correlation. I wonder if a striper would eat better on a full moon because it makes the bait rise in the surface, as to where maybe like a largemouth or a smallmouth or a spot might feed better on a new moon up shallow. So that's kind of where I was trying to go with it.
Yeah, I mean, it's just for me, it's really dependent upon the time of year, which one I'd rather fish. And I don't know that it's like I said during the shad spawn. For me, I'm fishing so close to the bank. I'm literally fishing parallel to the bank, a foot away from the bank. So I really like having that moon just because I can see better. I can make more accurate casts and not cast up in the rocks or hit the land on top of docks and whatnot. So So that may play into why I do better during the full moon. I don't know, but yeah, that time of year, full moon is 100% for me.
Have you found that there's anything maybe behavioral wise, or maybe a certain, I don't know, maybe a certain, in terms of how bass will locate themselves, that helps you kind of correlate back to like during the daytime and use, for like fishing tournaments? Like, is there anything that's helped you learn more about bass at night that's correlated back to, maybe your tournament performance?
I don't know. I can't say that for sure. Like I said, for the most part, I'm doing the same things I'm doing during the day. So I can't say that I've really seen anything that made that big of a difference.
Right. So obviously the fishing can get pretty gnarly at night and a lot of fun, but I think fishing aside, are there any advantages to fishing at night and not during the day? Like maybe not avoiding. I mean, I think you actually said you had like some crazy experience with a jet skier, but like for the most part, is it much more peaceful fishing at night than during the day?
Oh yeah, I mean, way better. I mean, during the summer, you'll have a lot of people out on Smith Mountain Lake day and night. Well, I say a lot. It's during night, it's a lot less, but it's a lot for night fishing in general. But yeah, for the most part, Smith Mountain Lake's so big, you'll have quite a few people out there, but there's times where you'll never see another boat. Just depending on where you're at. If you're back in a creek or something, and you won't have another boat, the lake will be slick, calm, and you're like, where am I? And it's just unbelievable just how calm it gets out there. I mean, you got docks everywhere. You'll have some people out on their docks and whatnot. You'll hear some music playing every once in a while, but I mean, it's so much more peaceful. Especially if you get to a smaller lake where you don't have docks and you don't have a lot of or more people fishing, and you hear deer walking through the woods, you'll hear raccoons on the bank, you'll shine your lights, you'll see some eyes looking back at you. Like you just got to watch out for them heron. They'll fly around and get hooked up on your lines. I had a mess with one of those one night too, but yeah, that wasn't fun.
Passed on that one.
But that doesn't sound like fun at all.
No, man, I wish it could have been on video, because I'm in the middle of this cove on Smith Mountain Lake, and I cast down the bank, and the bird flies up, gets tangled in my line, and like he's flying away, and the lure's getting closer to him as he's flying away. The line's kind of running over his back, and then all of a sudden the lure hits him, and then the bird just comes dive bombing down to the water, and I'm like, oh crap! And,
not good. Not good.
No, it was not good. And I'm out here cussing in the middle of the lake, like what am I gonna do now? Yeah, I had to wrestle with the bird for a little bit, and luckily got my lure back. Bird went away safely. Got a picture with it, and a pretty crazy story. And I'm sure if there was anybody out on their back porch that night, kind of looking down at the lake, hearing me cuss and trying to figure out what the heck was going on down there, I'm sure they had a laugh as well.
Oh, dude, that sounds like a nightmare. Like, I've tangled with seagulls and stuff during the day, but a seagull's way different than a heron. That's crazy, dude. No thanks.
Yeah, I didn't know what to do, man. It was pretty wild.
Yeah, dude, it sounds like it. But I will say, dude, there's been times where I've been close to like catching a bald eagle, and that's like one of those things where one, you feel like you're like assaulting your country, but then two, you're like, there's no way in hell I'm getting this bait back.
No, not even close.
I will say there's been
Yeah,
there was a really cool time. I was fishing a lake that had a big cornfield next to it, and it was one of those moments where it was almost like timing kind of came together, and you're like things get quiet, and you get you take like a moment to just kind of like look around because it's so dead, so quiet, nothing going on. And then right up in the cornfield, I could see him in the silhouette that deer were running, and I see coyotes chasing them. And you start hear the coyotes howl. That was probably one of the coolest things I've ever experienced. Was that? I mean, I hear coyotes all the time, but like seeing the silhouette, that thing was pretty cool.
Yeah, that'd be pretty cool. Yeah, those things. I got scared there a couple of times when I go to get off the water and you hear nothing but freaking coyotes howling in every direction around you. I'm like, oh man. But yeah, never actually seen them out there. Yeah.
Case, do you hunt at all?
I don't, man. I don't hunt. No, I just fishing is my game, man.
My man, same.
Dude, I will say there's something, and my brother is the fault for this. My brother, like I am to bass fishing, my brother is to hunting, and he got me into hunting coyotes. And one of the coolest ways, where if you want a wicked adrenaline rush, is you go hunting for coyotes. And the way you hunt for these, like to really do it efficiently, is you do it at night, middle of the night. You go out to, like, for us in New York, we go down the southern tier because the southern tier there's a lot more public land, but also there's a lot more cornfields, a lot more like just general woods for these things to roam, and less houses obviously to get in the way. But we went out one night, and it was like one of my first nights ever really coyote hunting. And you get rifles, and you have these big red floodlights that go on top of your gun. And basically, we got like tripods and everything. You stand back to back in the middle of a cornfield. You put out a decoy with a sound and everything to go off for these things. And you're basically just scanning these wood lines while you're in the middle of the field, almost like bait. And you're scanning these wood lines because they can't see red, so you use these red floodlights. And once you start calling to them, you can hear packs in the distance start reacting and calling back. And you hear them getting closer and closer. And that first night I did it, we got so close that you can see their eyes running along the tree line because they're smart. And all you see is eyes. And it was one of the coolest moments. My brother's just like, as soon as you see an eye on that tree line, step out. He goes, it's safety off, and let them have it. Dude, it is some of the most adrenaline rushing thing you'll ever do. It's awesome.
Oh, yeah. I believe that, man. That kind of sounds like right up my alley, man. That would be pretty fun.
Or shooting hogs.
Yeah, I got a couple of buddies that do it.
Yeah, no.
Sorry, go ahead.
I said the only thing that might be as fun as that is shooting hogs from a helicopter in Texas.
That would be wild, man. The helicopter game throws a whole other thing in there, but yeah, that would be pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's something. If you're ever interested, you'll have to come up. I'm looking forward to doing that this winter. If we ever get any ice, that's probably what I'll resort to as my activity to balance me until tournament season and things start opening up in the spring. But dude, I know one of our buddies, Zach Hall, and Casey, you might know of Zach Hall. He does some kayak stuff. He actually fished the Tournament of Champions. He does some stuff in Texas and Louisiana. They take like infrared guns, like infrared scopes on their guns, and they go out for these hogs. And you can like creep up to like 30 yards away from them because they can't hear very well. But you can see them with the scope. They're just walking around, and then you just unload on them. That stuff sounds like a lot of fun too. Like,
yeah, that's pretty cool, man. That's like, kind of using the technology like we're using our fish finders and stuff, but using that technology in a different kind of way, man. That's pretty cool to be able to see infrared like that, like that'd be real fun to do.
Yeah. Well, we won't talk too much about hunting because it is a serious angler podcast, not the serious hunter. But maybe we got an idea, Andy, for down the road as a segment idea. But no. But Casey, we're gonna wrap things up in a little bit, and we'll let you go. But we got one last question for you. And Andy, you got anything before we hit him with it?
No, I just want to know what your favorite bait is. One for largemouth at night, and then for the striped bass. Because are they pure striped, or are they like wipers? Are they the hybrids on Smith Mountain? Just so I guess that's a two-part question.
I've always been told they're pure stripers, but some of them have broken lines, and I've been told by people that means they're hybrids. But I don't know that that's 100% the case. From my knowledge, like the state of Virginia, they call them stripers. So I don't think they're hybrids, but
Okay.
I don't know. But as far as like my favorite lure, for largemouth, I've caught fish on a shaky head all year long, all around the country. Green pumpkin, shaky head, about 3/8 ounce.
It's a good universal.
If I can, yeah.
Those are stripers. Those are
that's a striper for sure. Thing's massive.
Yeah, I mean that was what I always thought they were striper, but like I said, there's been some that have broken stripes, but they're. I mean, the hybrids seem to be a little bit like, I guess taller is the word I'm looking for, but these ones are just they're pretty long and slim. I mean, you'll get some fat ones, but like yeah, they as far as I know, they're stripers.
Awesome.
But so fishing for stripers at night, I'll just throw a local guy makes it. He calls it a swamp monkey. It's just a round jig head with the skirt on there, and put a fluke on there, a swim bait, or I got a big curly tail grub that I've been throwing on there recently, and just kind of throw it under lights and slow roll it, burn it, just trying to figure out the depth that they're really at that night, and that's my go-to for stripers.
Too much fun. I want to catch a striper or a hybrid. Like that's bucket list for me.
Yeah, that's one thing I've never done that I'm itching to do is get out after those suckers.
They're so much fun. I look forward to it every year. I really need to get out on the salt and chase some of the stripers when they come through on the salt.
I know a guide in Connecticut that does it.
Really?
Yeah, off the beach at nighttime. He said the bite now is just insane.
Really? That would be so much fun, man. And you can catch. I mean, there's some big stripers in Smith Mountain Lake, but catching some saltwater stripers, dude, they get so freaking massive.
Yeah, I was talking to him about a week ago. He said he got one right around 45 pounds from the beach.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Dude, I couldn't imagine, man. Those things tug so freaking hard.
Yeah.
Like they're a freight train when they hit and pull.
Just wild.
No thanks.
No thanks. Sign me up. It sounds like way too much fun.
Yeah. Andy, anything left for Casey here before we hit him with the last question?
Man, I want to say it was a pleasure meeting you. Best of luck in the kayak world. I personally am a boater, so it's always cool to hear the insight from a kayak angler. So thanks for taking the hour out and joining us tonight. Well, today. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
Best of luck in 2022 and safe travels.
Yeah, thank you, and thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, dude. Well, before we cut you loose here, we got one last question for you, and it's one that we like to ask everyone that's new to the show, and that is if you could sit down and have a beer, have a steak with 3 different individuals. They don't have to be fishing related. They could be alive 1,000 years ago or now. It doesn't matter. Everyone is free game. But if you could sit down with 3 individuals, have a steak, have a beer, and pick their brain, who are you going to invite?
I'd have to say probably. I mean, the only thing that can come to my mind right now is probably going to be fishing related. But
that's fine.
One, Aaron Martins. He's the one who's got me throwing a drop shot as much as I do. I watch him catch so many fish all over on a drop shot, and I really, I just, I love it. And it was so funny because I remember seeing a video from him like a couple years later after I seen him throw the drop shot all the time. And then he's like, man, I hate throwing the drop shot. He's like, I really don't like it. I'd rather be doing something else, but it catches fish. And I mean, he's right. I love throwing the drop shot, and you know, it's just it's unfortunate what kind of what happened with him, but he's definitely somebody I've always looked up to, throwing the drop shot. So he'd definitely be one of them. You know, I think another is one that I looked up to growing up as a kid, Jimmy Houston. I used to love watching this TV show back in the day, and dude, he was kissing every fish when he throw it back, and like had me doing that, you know, when I was young, and I'm like, my mom's calling me crazy, like, what are you doing kissing those fish? I'm like, that's what you got to do. You got to kiss the fish. It's good luck.
Doesn't matter if they're 4 inches
but yeah,
or
Jimmy
14 pounds.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I actually got to meet him here at Liberty University. They do a beast feast, and he came and was a spokesperson there, so I got to meet him there and get a picture with him and whatnot. And but yeah, he's definitely somebody that I've always looked up to as well, and would love to, you know, sit down and have a good conversation with. I feel like he's been around and seen it all and done it all, you know. So
yeah,
heck yeah.
And another one, just Mike Iaconelli. He's a wild dude. I've had a few conversations with him. You know, haven't really, not deep conversations or anything, but just a few conversations in passing and whatnot. But to me, he knows how to market himself really well, and he does a great job at it. And just he's a wild dude on video and everything, but you know, every time I've talked to him, he's just as nice as could be, as calm as could be, and I just feel like being able to talk with him and just pick his brain about, I mean, fishing, about, you know, becoming a better, what's the word, like marketing yourself better, you know, stuff like that. He's definitely one that I really liked, and I just know he's a real controversial one. There's a lot of people that don't like him. You kind of either love him or you hate him, but I think he's an awesome dude, and you know, just he'd be one that I'd choose to sit down and
what do you can
have dinner with and have a conversation. Yeah,
for sure. Well, dude, that's a power 3. So kudos
I
on
like
answering that. And you didn't stump like a lot of people. A lot of people take it like, oh, that's a good question. I didn't see that coming, and then they wait like 30 seconds. And they're like, give me some time to think about these. But no, you nailed that. Nailed it good, dude.
I mean, you know, like fishing's been on the mind, so definitely chose fishing there. But I mean, you know, you ask me a few days later, you know, the answers may be totally different. But I mean, that's what's cool about that question, I guess. It's just like,
that's why we ask it, dude. But, that's exactly why we ask it.
Yeah.
But dude, seriously, thank you so much for taking time out to come on the show tonight and talk some night fishing, learn more about you, and hopefully I'll be seeing you in some of the kayak tournaments this year. And I'm dying to get down there and chase some striper and get on Smith Mountain, because I've heard it's just a beautiful lake in general. But if you're ever trying to get up here and do some nighttime coyote hunting or fishing or whatever, holler at me. But either way, I hope to see you on the trails this year, and keep in touch, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah, appreciate you having me on, and looking forward to like meeting you in person. And yeah, dude, if you're ever down here, if you want to plan a trip, man, come down like May, early May, and well, anywhere in May really, and we'll get on that shad spawn bite and catch some striper, catch some bass, catch some biggins.
Oh yeah, man. Well, dude, it's been fun chatting with you, and we'll be in touch.
All right, sounds good, man. Y'all take care.
All right, Casey. We'll see you. Dude, and you've never really night fished much, have you?
I grew up night fishing for catfish and walleye, so I have night fished quite a ton. And I will tell you this one, I've caught some of the biggest bass of my life at night fishing for walleye.
Back in smallmouth or largemouth?
Both.
Dude, it's wicked. Like, I'll say that too. I mean, I won't say it was some of the biggest bass of my life, but like, I've caught a handful of 5+ pounders, a couple 6-pounders at night, and everything I've thrown at night, dude, like straight up, it honestly was some of the most fun I've had because of the least amount of tackle I ever bring.
Yeah,
I bring one box. I bring pliers and scissors. Yeah, exactly. And that's it. I bring 2 top waters, and that's all you're good for the rest of the night. You can bring a graph, but like if you know where you're fishing, you really don't even need a graph.
Yeah,
it's a whole lot of fun, dude.
Turn and burn.
Yeah, we need to do it this next summer. I think that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, maybe like a trip to I won't name the lake, so a couple things that I think.
And you almost slipped up.
Yeah, it's been a long day. Like
I saw you falling asleep a couple of times there, bud.
Oh, dude, I'm yawning and I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
I think I'm gonna have to go back through here and screenshot at one point because your eyes went like cross-eyed and you were dozing off.
I felt it. I was like, this ain't good.
Whoever watched, if you're on YouTube right now, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's one. I could feel it. I was like,
and he's got close to the screen at one point. He's just like,
dude, I am spent. Like,
I'm sure you are, buddy.
Absolutely spent.
But dude, I think with that being said, before you crash on this show,
thanks for calling me out on that. Like, it's just funny. Like, I was like, I hope they didn't see that.
Oh, I saw that. I'm sure Casey saw it too.
I warned everybody from the beginning. Okay, I warned.
But dude,
I still got some good questions in. All right, like I was still there.
I'm hoping to do some more night fishing next year. I didn't get a chance to do it at all this past summer. It wasn't for. It's not that I didn't have time or the opportunity. I definitely did. I just literally chose my fishing time to be during the day and chose sleep. But it really is, if you can take advantage of it, it is a lot of fun. It really is.
You know what I personally would like to do on night fishing wise? Like, not even so much catch fish. I would rather just go out there and graph because everything's probably going to illuminate so nice on your graph at nighttime because of the dull image. Sometimes when it's too bright, you don't get such a good return. That I wonder how graphing at night would be, and if you could actually pick up some stuff that you've never seen before.
Yeah, I'm sure it's possible.
Yeah,
for sure. I know a lot of guys do that. You know, you hear of Jacob Wheeler or Adrian Avina and those guys doing it back, all throughout the night when it was allowed.
Yeah.
So
just interesting.
Yeah, really good show tonight. Obviously, I say tonight, but it's a Friday that you guys will listen to this thing too. But either way, folks, we appreciate you as always tuning in. Make sure you guys are leaving a rating and review on Apple Podcasts if you can. But I think with that being said, Andy, we will tune out. We plan on having Dean Rojas on Monday Night Live. We're about 95%, just making sure his schedule's still clear. And then hopefully that's the case. If not, we'll figure out a fun guest, and we'll have Dean. Either way, we'll have Dean on coming on the show here soon. But either way, folks, appreciate you guys tuning in. We'll see you guys on Monday.